English literature is a kind of training in social ethics. English trains you to handle a body of information in a way that is conducive to action. So dear students, today in this video we are going to learn this about William and the Holewood Bequest, which was written by Richmal Crompton, Unit 3 of Gulmohar. So let's start. These are some of the books written by Richmal Crompton. Just William, William the Good, William and the Brains Trust. Now a short biography about Richmal Crompton. Richmal Crompton Lumburn was born in Bury, Lancashire, the second child of the Rev. Edward John Sewell Lamburn. He was the father, a classics master at Bury Grammar School, and his wife Clara Nee Crompton. She was the mother of Richmal Crompton. Crompton graduated in 1914 with a BA Honours degree in classics. In second class, she took part in the women's suffrage, the right to vote in elections movement. She published her first story in 1918 under her mother's maiden name. After an attack of polio, she focused entirely on writing. The first of the popular William books appeared in 1922. For the next 45 years, she was always at work on two books simultaneously, one for children and one for adults. In her lifetime, 30 collections of William stories sold over 8 million copies. She also wrote over 40 serious novels, of which Family Roundabout was most popular. She was a British writer, renowned for her Just William stories about a mischievous 11-year-old schoolboy and his band of friends, known as Outlaws. She published her first short story in 1918. And then she never married and had no children also. She was an aunt and a great aunt. Her William stories and her other literature were extremely successful, and 3 years after she retired from teaching, Crompton was able to afford to have a house. The name of her house was the Glebe, built in Bromley Common for herself and her mother Clara. In spite of her disabilities during the Second World War, she volunteered for the fire service. Crompton died in 1969 at the age of 78 after a heart attack in Farnborough Hospital. Crompton had fallen ill on the drive home from visiting her niece's home in Chelsfield, Kent. After feeling unwell during the night, Crompton telephoned friends the next morning and died within an hour of being taken to hospital. Now this was the short biography of Richmal Crompton. Now the story's main character, William Brown, an 11-year-old boy, Aunt Louis, Miss Belly, a very old lady, Thor, the overgrown Alastian puppy, Colonel Holewood, father of Aunt Belly, served in British Army for many years. Now first a short character sketch of William Brown. The main character, William Brown, in William and Holewood Bequest, is an 11-year-old middle-class schoolboy. He is the leader of the outlaws and the sworn enemy of Hubert Lane. He is confident and strong-willed. He doesn't care about his personal hygiene or appearance, to his family dismay. He loves to play Indians, pirates, or spies with his friends, as well as reading action stories. He is fond of sweets and soft drinks. His imagination and love of adventure are constantly at play, getting him into trouble. So, William Brown is one of the most popular fictional characters of all time. An interesting aspect is that the books span 5 decades. In addition to the wonderful adventure, fun and humor of the books, they provide a unique portrait of the changing landscape of typical English village, William's home, during those 50 years. So now, a short summary of this story. William didn't know whether to be grateful or resentful, feeling angry when Aunt Louise invited him to spend a week of the summer holidays with her. Aunt Louise herself was all right, but she had recently moved in her with her own aunt, a very old lady named Miss Belly Holewood, who needed to be looked after and whom William didn't know at all. Aunt Louise explained in her letter that Aunt Belly did not often leave for a room, and that there would be a big garden for William to play in, and that would break Aunt Belly's heart. "What sort of collection is it?" William asked. In reply, Aunt Louise led him to the travel museum in Aunt Belly's library. So now, let's have a full explanation of this story. Now, William didn't know whether to be grateful or resentful, or resentful over here means angry or upset, when Aunt Louise invited him to spend a week of the summer holidays with her. Aunt Louise herself was all right, but she had recently moved in her with her own aunt, a very old lady named Miss Belly Holewood, who needed to be looked after and whom William didn't know at all. Now, Aunt Louise explained in her letter. She wrote a letter, and then she explained in her letter that Aunt Belly did not often leave for room, and that there would be a big garden for William to play in. There was also, she added, a dog and woods at the far end of the garden. All this helped William make up his mind quickly. These opportunities were too good to miss. The visit went off even better than William had expected. For one, Thor, this is the name of a puppy. For one, Thor, the overgrown Alastian puppy, was the most spirited companion. Alastian over here means what? Breed of German Shepherd dog from France. And then was the most full of energy. Spirited means full of energy. companion one could have. This Alastian puppy, he was full of energy. And then, under William's guidance, Thor learned to leap and gamble, to forcefully jump and run or jump about playfully and run after sticks and rabbits too. Now, William soon taught him to chase after rats as well. Though the pup seldom, pup over here means young dog. Young dog not often caught one. Caught over here means what? It is the past tense of catch. So now even Aunt Belly turned out not to be bad-tempered, that is easily annoyed or made angry or complaining indoors. Aunt Louis provided books and games. Aunt Belly's cook provided meals that both in quality and quantity were far superior. They were higher in rank to anything William had ever had before. The only shadow, something unpleasant that spoils a good situation, on what was turning out to be a perfect week was Aunt Louis herself. She seemed to be oddly, strangely quiet and preoccupied, or which this preoccupied means over here thinking or worrying about something too much. So William didn't feel much curiosity or much strong desire to know or even interest, as he knew grown-ups' way of thinking in general was strange. William felt they worried about things that didn't seem worth worrying about and were pleased by things that seemed to offer no reason for rejoicing or for great joy. Now, but William missed Aunt Louise's usual stream of jokes and stories too much. On the last evening, but one of his stay, they were playing a game of draughts. Game of draughts means what over here? This I have placed a picture over here. This is a game of draught, a game played with circular pieces and a board with black and white squares. So when Aunt Louise suddenly broke off with a sigh, with a emit a long, deep, audible breath expressing some sadness or relief or tiredness, like that. So a poor Aunt Belly is in for a shock that will upset her very much. Shock over here means what? Sudden, strong, unpleasant or upsetting feeling or surprise. So she said it's about the bequest. Bequest here means what? The act of giving or leaving something by will. So the Holewood Bequest. William felt a tinge of annoyance. A tinge of annoyance over here means what? A slight feeling of irritation. So William felt irritation as he would have won the game in another 2 moves. What request, he asked. Bequest, dear, said Aunt Louis. It means a legacy. Legacy over here means what? An amount of money or property left to someone in a will after the death. So when someone leaves to someone to have after one's death. So the bequest was made by Aunt Belly's father, Colonel Holewood, who served in the British Army for many years. Now, wars and fighting always interested William immensely. He was very interested in wars and fighting, greatly interested in that, extremely interested. Gross, he said. Aunt Bellie's father. What war did he fight in? The War of Roses. Over here, the War of Roses means what? The period of war between two parts of royal family in England between 1455 and 1485. Each side was represented by a rose. And we have just started to study that at school. Oh, not quite as far back as that, said Aunt Louis. Anyway, he had spent some time in China and came back with a priceless ivory carving. Ivory carving over here means what? The carving or shaping of ivory into sculpture or ornaments and decorative or utilitarian articles. Elephant tusk had been the main source of ivory used for such carving. So that is what is ivory carving of Kuan Yin. This Kuan Yin over here, it is a sculpture, it is the name of idol or name of Chinese goddess on a pedestal. Pedestal means over here the base or support on which a statue or obelisk or column is mounted upon, is placed upon. So dating back to the Ming dynasty. Dating back over here means what? Said to have existed in earlier times. So, oh, said William, sounding rather lost. So, what did William say over here? He said, oh, he was lost in something. He was not understanding what she was saying about the history of China. No, so he was not able to understand that. Yuan Yin is the Chinese goddess of mercy, explained Aunt Louis, and the Ming dynasty ruled in China from the 14th century to about the middle of the 17th century. Oh, yes, said William. More still, more lost still. History was not his strong point. He was not at all interested in history now, like you people. Well, Colonel Holewood left the little statue to the town museum in his will, went on Aunt Louis, but after his death it just could not be found. Perhaps it got stolen. However, Aunt Belly really wanted her father's last wish to be respected and some kind of Holewood bequest to be housed or to be kept safely in the museum. Aunt Bailey has always been fond of traveling and of collecting, continued Aunt Louis, and she was made a sort of museum of her traveling souvenirs. Souvenirs over here means what? A thing that is kept as a reminder of a person or place or event. She wants to bequeath. Bequeath means what? Same like this bequest. Leave to a person, leave anything to a property. It might be a property or anything to a person or other beneficiary by a will. So that to the town as the Holewood bequest in the place of the Kuan Yin. So Kuan Yin over here, it is a Chinese goddess. I've already explained earlier. So now, jolly good idea, said William. It is a very good idea, said William. Now I am afraid not, sighed Aunt Louis. If the statue had been found, Aunt Belly would not have wanted to donate her, to give the idol or to give the statue for a good cause, for example, to a charity, her collection to the museum. You see the little statue who was absolutely unique. It was very unique. And but Aunt Bailey's collection is really not interesting enough for a museum. The curator, the keeper of the museum, curator means what? Keeper of the museum is coming this afternoon to tell her that they can't accept it, and that would break Aunt Bailey's heart now. What sort of collection is it? William asked here. In reply, Aunt Louis led him to the travel museum in Aunt Bailey's library. Though spread over a large amount of space, that museum, it was spread over a large amount of space. It was quite dull and unexciting also. On the tables sat a large number of very ordinary knickknacks, that is, small worthless objects. They were not of any value, of the kind that tourists pick up from souvenir shops. Souvenir wear means what? A thing that is kept as a reminder of a person, place, or event. So around the world. Now there was a set of glass bottles. What were there in that museum? There were a set of glass bottles, all filled with water and all neatly labeled. They were all tagged. They were all labeled over there. And water from the river Nile, water from the river Danube. On a desk nearby was arranged a number of pebbles also. Pebbles means small stones. They were also neatly labeled. Pebble from Adelaide, pebble from San Francisco. On yet another table were a large number of bus and train tickets. Even William could see that it wasn't the kind of collection that any museum would want. Now, when the curator, that is the museum keeper, arrived at 4 o'clock, everybody was waiting in the library. William had smuggled. Smuggled means what? Moved the goods, whatever these things, illegally into or out of a country. Here, William had smuggled in Wilfrid. So he have moved the goods illegally in Wilfrid, his pet white mouse, into the house. Aunt Louis and Aunt Bailey would have had a fit. Would have had a fit over here means what? Would have been very shocked or angry with William if they had known that the mouse was in the pocket of William's shorts, that is William's trousers. And if William had not brought the creature into the house, what followed could have been avoided. So now, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Bearer over here means what? A person that carries or holds something. So he was the bearer of what? He was the bearer of bad news. So Miss Holewood, began the curator pompously. So pompously means what over here? Like great importance. But just then Thor, the name of the puppy, entered the library, and just as Thor entered it, Wilfrid happened to poke his head out of William's pocket. Poke means what? It pushed his head out of the pocket of the William's this shorts or trouser. So immediately all was confusion. Wilfrid leapt onto the floor. That is, Wilfrid jumped or sprang a long way to great height or with a great force onto the floor and then over the tables and desk. Thor hurled his great body. So he threw or impelled with great force his great body in pursuit, in the action of pursuing someone, barking loudly, and then William hurled himself after Thor. William also he threw and impelled with great force himself after Thor to stop him. The collection was scattered now. It was disorganized in different directions, right and left. And the curator tried to grab the dog, to catch hold, to seize the dog suddenly and crash to the floor, knocking William off balance. So he was unstable. This William was unstable now. In a desperate bid to save himself, so trying with little chance of success to save himself, William held onto something urgently at a half open drawer of a desk. The drawer came out with a sound of wrenching, with a sudden sound of pull or twist wood, and there, from a secret compartment that had formed a false back to the drawer, rolled out a little ivory statue made up of ivory. The thing shrieked Aunt Louis. Shrieked over here means what? Made a high pitched screeching sound. The Guanin, cried Aunt Belly. The Holewood Bequest, breathed the curator reverently, with great respect and admiration, picking himself up from the floor. They stood round the little statue, smiling broadly, beaming with rapture, great happiness. Rapture means great happiness, all except William, who wasn't interested at all. Rescuing, that is saving from dangerous or difficult situation, Wilfrid from the top of the bookcase and keeping him well out of Thor's reach. He set off to the kitchen to find something to eat. Now, this story is simplified and adopted from the Holewood Bequest in the William Detector. So, I hope you have understood this story of William and the Holewood Bequest, when William's recklessness turns out to be a help. Thank you. Stay safe and enjoy yourself doing creative works at home.